Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Thorne with HireMilitary. Glad to be with you here again on LinkedIn Live, talking about your military transition, setting you up for success by connecting you with companies that are hiring and organizations that are here for your success. And I am really, really happy today to be joined by an amazing group of individuals that I happen to have the privilege of being in the local area with, but they also happen to be running an amazing organization that is really, I just gave myself sound in my ear. Sorry about that. They're running an organization I really believe in. I'm proud to be a part of it. And so I'm here today to welcome Phil Kendro, Brian Grana, Kevin Cortez. I love them, even though every one of them are Marines up there. So I know how this next 30 minutes is going to go, being the only sailor in this whole group here. But really so proud and glad to have you guys here with me today. Thanks for taking the time to join us this afternoon. So I might as well go ahead and start off. I'd love to hear a little bit from each of you, just sort of about your background and your military background and where you're from. So Phil, go ahead and kick it off. Let's hear about you.
Hey, good afternoon, bud. Great to see you and look forward to seeing you in person tonight. So following 20 plus years, Marine Corps career in aviation, operations, community relations. I went to an IT company, did business development for about 2.5 years with a group called Nova Systems International here locally in San Diego. Great experience, great bosses, got to work with a great diverse team. So that was really awesome with going that military to that corporate to kind of have a really great leap into it. But for the last 2 years, I ended up going back to the airlines, flying for JetBlue Airways, and most recently for United Airlines. I'm sure you've heard lots of what's going on with those recently. But I've also continually led multiple high visibility projects here in San Diego as the vice president for the Mount Soledad Memorial Association. As well as leading large events like the Concours d'Elegance, big car show. We have big aviation flyover, the Holiday Bowl parade, and Holiday Bowl game itself. And so for many of these groups, I developed the press releases, the talking points, the action plans, live on-air commentary, dealing with the media, the elected officials, and everything. And it's been great because it gets me still from military time to community time and still working together with all those different groups.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, I think, but for those who are happen to be in the Southern California area, they probably know the Miramar Air Show is the biggest thing going every year when we're actually doing it, whether the Blue Angels or the or the Air Force is there with their F-16s, whatever it may be. And when that's happening, Phil is the voice of the Miramar Air Show pretty much most of the time, right?
Well, actually, we get a couple of nationally recognized air show announcers. What's ended up happening the last few years is that I go on with Kogo 600 AM, and I'll do some of the dialogue for them live on the radio. So that's actually been a lot of fun. Kogo 600 AM has been a great support of the Miramar Air Show and a lot of our large aviation events that we're doing here in San Diego. So it's always fun to work that air show, and been working that since about 2008.
Nice, that's awesome. And as is standard, as soon as we start talking about Phil, Kevin gets tired of hearing it and dropped out on us. So I think we'll get Kevin back here in a moment. We'll get him back in, but in the meantime, we'll make fun of him while he's off the air and he can't say anything in return. So Brian, we'd love to hear a little bit about
how we like it. Hi, everybody in BTC land. Brian Grana, retired at 20 years. Out of the Marine Corps. I was a logistician, a contracting officer, and a strategic planner. I was really, really fortunate. Shortly after retiring, I transitioned over to an electrical construction firm called HMT Renewables. I was there for literally 3 years on the dot. So right at the 3-year mark, it was time for orders. Got a new set of orders, and now I'm working for an absolutely incredible consulting firm out of Tysons, Virginia. And I'm lucky enough to work from home. So what you see behind me is my home office. And I've been doing that for a little over 14, 15 months now. And I really enjoy the work that I'm doing there. I'm on 2 national nonprofit boards and 3 local nonprofit boards. And have 2 young boys. And it's always on the go. But I got to really tell you, my passion, along with Phil and Kevin's, is we love helping veterans find jobs, help them in their transition, also known as reinvention, and just get them set. And we're really blessed to have an incredibly large network of friends and supporters in every industry in San Diego.
That's awesome. And so, all that really sounds like you haven't been doing much since your retirement from the military, sort of laying low a little bit there.
I mean, sleep's a crutch. So just figuring it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, again, just really, really lucky. Everything, I mean, and we'll get into this more, but networking is just trusted relationship building over time. And if you're doing things you love with the people that you love, your network just naturally grows and you become a resource for others. Because at the end of the day, it's all about helping others, right?
Absolutely, 100%. I love it, absolutely. And, really appreciate you being here. And Kevin, you dropped off for a minute, but perfect timing. You're back with us. When you go back and look at the tape later on, you're going to see that we said some really bad things about you for a moment there, but that's okay.
Do we have to let him back on?
It's kind of I think there's a contract or something. I'm not sure, but so Kevin, really pleasure to have you with us as well. I'd love to hear a little bit about you before we move on here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. I also, so I'm here at work and the Wi-Fi here has been in and out, so I just switched it to another way. So first of all, Chris, thank you so much for the invite. It's a pleasure and an honor to be a guest of this broadcast, and I'm very humbled to be on a show with a following that you have. So just first honors and thank you for that. Just a little bit about myself, 20 years in the Marine Corps. I was a 53 pilot, retired in 2015, spent 4 years after retirement in the finance industry, just kind of cut my teeth in anywhere from credit union, business development to a mortgage company. And then I was an insurance company before I started a program called the Rotary Transition Program, which helps helicopter pilots get to the airlines. I was at SkyWest for about a year and a half, and then obviously COVID hit and had to have some options other than sit on the bench and sit reserve. So a good news story about the Veteran Spirit Club is that I have a new opportunity that I got from connection from the Veteran Spirit Club that allowed me to have the current position where I work as an aviation safety consultant for a utility company, San Diego Gas and Electric, which under Sempra, utilities. And so what I do here is I work with utility helicopters in managing their safety department as well as developing programs. And also what we do in addition to utility is firefighting as well. A lot of people don't know that SCG&E has a firefighting component. We have actually 3 dedicated assets to firefighting. So we work with CAL FIRE here in San Diego for all of our fires. So I've been here for about a month and a half. I'm learning a lot, and I really enjoy it. It keeps me grounded in San Diego. But I'm absolutely one of the good news stories, one of the many good news stories from the Veteran Spirit Club, how networking works, how it's powerful, and how it can use your advantage. And all I've done since finding Veteran Spirit Club with Phil and Brian is help promote our brand and to help others understand that there is life on the outside. And it is very easy to kind of get discouraged, but creating an environment that's comfortable, creating an atmosphere that's comfortable to help these service members transition is what I'm also passionate about.
I love it. So, and hearing that one of the founders of the Veteran Spirit Club also happens to be a beneficiary of what comes from that. It's like, it's Hair Club for Men. I'm not just a founder, I'm a member, right? Well, not me, obviously, but I know, Brian, you and me were there. It's a good one. So, probably this is a great point then, maybe just with the 3 of you, to sort of look at that conversation. In your military transition, somewhere along the line, we all figure out, whether that's earlier or later, we all figure out the essential elements of networking and building those bonds with people that are going to be part of your professional network, personal communities that ultimately lead to opportunities. So in your transition, when did that come to you? Was it an early, was it a late, was it an aha moment, or did you have it figured out from the get-go?
So
I go first.
I could jump in here real quick, and I think what happened is the genesis of how Veteran Spirit Club got founded was the fact that there was a needs. Those who's work in acquisition, you have urgent needs statement or a universal needs statement. And so what happened is, transition in San Diego County was a challenge because being in San Diego, there isn't exactly a lot of big corporate businesses to go to other than government contracting. The best statistics I like is 83% of those transitioning from the service don't have the same job when they get out of the military, and that's a big number. I spent my last 3 years prior to retirement, my last deployment, literally networking, figuring out where do I start, and joining as many civilian networking groups to include meetup groups. Meetup was a good source of information for me just to get to know people. But quite literally, Chris, took down to the last 3 or 4 months prior to my end of active service to get a job. And what we learned collaborating with Phil and Brian about a year after we've been out, we kind of had to understand what was a veteran snapshot in San Diego to understand why was there such a disconnect. And what we came up with is that there's no one really on the outside helping each other in an organic way that we can rely and trust those who've transitioned. So a quick story was, I was within 6 months of me transitioning, I knew two other Marines that successfully transitioned. One was a realtor and the other one was working at Caterpillar. So, I mean, those are two random jobs, two jobs I did not want to do and I wasn't interested in. And so we came to a point to where the three of us sat down and we decided, like, let's just meet informally and just discuss and have a conversation and figure out how do we help those who are in uniform transition because of our experiences and our, I guess, successes and failures. And that's kind of what we understood to the beginning of the Veterans Beer Club. Just something snazzy, just a bunch of people meeting at a different brewery to figure out how to transition. So it's something that we developed from a need in the community that we saw from the three of us transitioning almost at the same time. Brian was slightly after when Phil and I retired. But it came to the point where he had similar experiences. And I mean, Brian back in the heyday was all pimped out in a suit and he was looking good. He was shaved and he was a man, he's big, tall,
head full of hair,
good looking, he had a head full of hair. Yeah. He looked like a giant chia pet, but all of a sudden, it just, he transitioned and it was up there. But the one thing I will tell you, the value is having Phil and Brian to brainstorm two world-class people that definitely you want on your team. So, I mean, I was super blessed to have those guys, meet and we all discussed, we all came together and truly it's about collaboration. So those two guys are super knowledgeable, huge networks.
I love it. So Phil,
remember, return fire is the best fire, Cortez.
Phil, this is probably a great time. So now, we've got three really successful transitions going on, but realizing, as Kevin was mentioning, the need, the value of those networks and sort of what that means, and seeing that there's not really a placement there or that there's a vacuum for this. So you guys get together and you see this. So I've already got, Erica McInnes is in the chat and had already asked, this is probably the right time to come in. What is the Veterans Beer Club? And so let's go ahead, let's throw it. What the genesis of, and by the way, I do want to point out for everyone, just for those of you who might be in Virginia, Florida, Mexico, wherever you may be saying, oh, they're just talking about something in San Diego, stay around because this is not just a San Diego thing. But Phil, tell us, what is the Veterans Beer Club?
So founded a little bit over 4 years ago. We had a small group like Kevin had talked about. I think it was 5 or 6 of us originally at Second Chance Beer Company, which is kind of nice jogging distance from my house, which is nice. But we had met there for the first time, and we basically have three different facets about. Number one, it's helping in that transition. It's that transition. It's connecting people with other people in industries. We're lucky in San Diego that we pretty much touch every industry in San Diego, and we're recognized by most military and elected officials as well. They recognize our organization as well as all the other transition groups. So a lot of stuff for Kevin, Brian, and I think Brian was even more successful with Kevin and I, was trying to seek out those transition groups. And because a lot of people come to us and say, this is awesome in San Diego. We have so much great groups to help out. I don't know where to go to. Mm-hmm. And so that was an early part of VBC, was vetting and figuring out which one of those groups actually are doing what they say. And so we've been able to partner with great groups like HireMilitary and Onwards Opportunity and Vet CTAP and all these groups that we know have really been vetted, and they're bringing in great transition seminars, resumes, networking events. And so that was the first part, was about just getting connected, people connected to different positions. The second one was translating military service to community service. So just like Brian says, sleep is a crutch. A lot of us, especially in the operations world, we ran around with our hair on fire. And when we don't run around with our hair on fire, we're really bored and we need something else to do. So one of the things that we've tried to do is to get a lot of the veterans to translate it to working on a nonprofit board, working with a volunteer organization, helping out with an elected campaign, wherever they may be. So that's been the second part. The third part was actually kind of a surprise to us. We knew that people were, excited to meet and maybe tell some old war stories and everything like that. But literally, when we had the first few months of BBCs, we had people coming from out of state and out of city because they heard about us and they just wanted some camaraderie. They'd been in the corporate world where they weren't necessarily feeling that they weren't having the fulfillment of being around a lot of veteran leaders, and they just needed that again. And so that's been the third part, is just restoring some camaraderie. And so those three parts of BBC is why it's been not just successful here in San Diego, but in multiple chapters now across the United States, even with the craziness of COVID going on.
Which absolutely. So, Brian, great time to bring you in, and of course, give you an opportunity to return some fire back to Kevin when we're in here. But it's interesting. There are other networking opportunities, and there's some great stuff in some other cities around the nation, whether that's Vetlanta in Atlanta, which is an amazing organization John Phillips set up, doing wonderful things down there, whether it's Mill City Connect in San Antonio down there, where they do some amazing things. But really, BBC is something that was set up unique in the way it perceived the interaction of what the networking was all about. Would you agree with that, Brian?
Oh, 100%. I mean, in full disclosure, the reason we kind of opened it up to a larger group is we got tired of talking to one another. And just talking to Dell at length it'll drive you to drink. But in all seriousness, to answer your question, we really kind of came in with some basic tenets. We wanted to really be a clearinghouse and just be truthful with vets that are getting out. Really get down to the brass tacks of, what is transition, what's it like, and just get right at it. We wanted to be authentic. We wanted to make sure that what we were doing was not clothed in some kind of monetization, like we get everybody together, then we ask them for money, or we do fundraising or things like that. It's not like that at all. It's literally, let's get together. And really kind of the secret sauce for all this is kind of the organic nature of it is, once the word got out that really we were just a bunch of veterans trying to help other veterans, it really took off. And I think it was right around month 5 where Kevin, Phil, and I walked into a brewery and there were literally 50 veterans in the brewery. And we looked at each other and we're like, oh boy, we need to write a charter because this is going to get out of hand and people are going to think we're a drinking club. And literally the following week we went to Stone Brewery in Escondido. And we got after it and we got it to a 1-page charter. And out of the now, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, 32 times we put that charter out to BBCs across the country. So we have 32 that are cooking right now, but 11 that are really, really active, and others in various stages of growth. So after we did that little charter writing, we revised it once. We actually recognized about a year and a half ago that we needed to increase our size and get a leadership team to really help us manage expectations, because at the end of the day, life happens, and we all have families and we all travel and we all do things. So we wanted to make sure that we had a bunch of quality individuals around us, Eddie Hansen, Dr. Derek Abbey, Kathy Warren, Chris Sutherland. Yes, Brad Gardner is outstanding, and he's on our team too. And we're growing this, and we really want to make sure that we're providing that mentoring to the other BBCs across the country from what we've learned, so they're not repeating any errors or missteps that we had. And we're really proud of the fact that we can say in 4 years we've only invited one veteran not to come back because we have a rule. We're not a drinking club. We're here to network and we're here to help each other out. So we're pretty proud of that. So hopefully that answers your question, Chris.
Yeah, it does. And, you hit a point there that I want to emphasize for everyone who might be watching, because when we say Veteran Beer Club, there are folks who start imagining the VFW and a bunch of old people sitting around the bar, kicking back way too many beers, smoking cigarettes and telling war stories. And really, I mean, yes, you formed this around the microbrewery scene that is in Southern California, which is a great, casual, convenient location to bring people together for natural networking. But it's not focused on drinking. Come join and have an apple cider or a glass of water. It's not about drinking beer. And certainly, I think, as you point out, should there be anybody who's going in the wrong direction, they're probably going to be invited not to be around for very long anyway. So
there's plenty of people who drink water, and we're totally fine with that. Because again, we want to provide a relaxed backdrop. That's why we want to provide a relaxed backdrop, and we also want to support San Diego businesses. And that's our secret sauce that works out here. Depending on the region where the other VBCs are located, they can adjust and tweak as necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Kevin, I think you had something on that as well.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add real quick that, the whole, before I start, I don't even drink alcohol, right? So it's not about the alcohol intake. It's about the atmosphere. It's about breaking a wall down. I grew up in an era in the military where you go to the officers club on a Friday and it was just full on party, and then you have to get your friend to drive you home. Well, those days are over. Now we're responsible adults. Now we look out for one another. And now that we're on this side of the fence, we're all about taking care of one another. But the message we say that it doesn't really stop when you're in uniform, it continues to grow. Going to the San Diego brewery scene, it's an advantage for us. There's correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, about 155 microbreweries in San Diego County. It's the largest in the country. And so why not go to a different brewery? It kills multiple birds with one stone, right? You get to go someplace new. San Diego County has 3.1 million people. It's got, several hundred square miles. So we're agnostic to one location. We'll go all parts of the county, and there's military lives all over this county. So we'll go do a rotation of breweries to look at the location. But one of the biggest things we say is, for people that enjoy beer, it's allowing people to put their hair down, so to speak. It allows them to relax, allows them to not be stuffed up. The biggest debrief I get from a lot of service members is, we're so glad that this is social. We're so glad that we can have a conversation. We're so glad that it's simple. There's no speeches. There's no. We'll have some VIPs. We'll have some guests that are in the recruiting world that are veterans that are able to speak way more than the three of us understand about how to recruit and resume. And we partner with people that we vet pretty seriously to help the nature of how a veteran can feel comfortable in the transition. And for us, I will tell you, Chris, the biggest issue we have is to filter all the predatory or the people that will prey on our service members, because we don't want to give off a bad signal of, here's another speech on something that I'm not going to use. I know that the 2-week transition course, at least in the Marine Corps side, is already drinking from a water main break. And we don't want to give one more thing that a service member transitioning can't remember. So why don't we just say, hey, here's my name, here's my number, take it down, I'll help you transition. And I'm honestly telling you right now today, I literally have another Marine Corps retired pilot I'm helping out as we speak. I just sent him a text last night. I gave him 3 job leads yesterday, and he reached out to me 4 days ago. And so we continue to do it. Brian, Phil, and I aren't saying, hey, you got to go to a leadership team or to a local chapter to get help. We all still do it. And just to add to what Brian was saying, we have 39 listed chapters. We have 11 active. And Veteran Beer Club 2.0 is that we're now starting to grow a nationwide network, and we're going to provide the foundation so chapters that are growing quite exponentially, at least before COVID, are able to have the tools and resources to continue to grow their clubs, but also at a level of the vision that we have imparted, so that it doesn't become a drinking club, and it also doesn't become a resource for said name business to prey on service members.
Yeah,
that's all I'm just saying.
No, I love that, and you guys have not had sponsoring companies or organizations, people who are getting exactly what Kevin talks about out there, becoming that sort of predatory for them, and you create that opportunity, and I love it. And I love the fact that if I am in San Diego transitioning out of the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Army, the Air Force, doesn't matter, and I participate. By the way,
Coast Guard, don't forget Coast Guard. We're
Coast Guard or Space Force, right? We got to bring them in. And I can participate while I'm still 12 months out from mine. I can go to the BBC San Diego and meet people and network and connect. And then if I leave the service and go home to Phoenix, you know what? There's a BBC in Phoenix where there's already I've got a family to jump right in and connect with when I go to Phoenix or Seattle or Portland or Washington D.C. or any of these. And I love that about creating that network of family to go to. And so, Phil, coming back over yours, I guess maybe the question becomes with the chapters you have now, and I know Kevin mentioned, BBC 2.0 and the expansion going further and farther. How do you prevent this from becoming that just another, as I call it, network speed dating routine out there where people are just out there setting up, tabletops to drop off resumes and pass out cards? How do you prevent it from becoming that?
Well, one thing is we do have a lot of folks that usually are either close friends or associations of ours that we know them, or they're close friends of somebody else that we know. They'll reach out and say, hey, I'm interested in starting a chapter in a certain location. Kevin's been pretty much taking charge of the charters. So we actually have a charter that talks about, hey, here's what we are and here's what we are not. And that charter really does kind of spell out about what we envision for it to be. We did have a BBC chapter in one of the locations that said, hey, we want to monetize it. And they've been doing a very successful job, but they just changed. We asked them to change the name, and they did that for us. And we've been very happy that they've been doing good. But again, it just wasn't necessarily underneath the Veterans Beer Club charter. And so I think that's what's been very helpful is that we get friends. I've got a friend just moved to Dallas, and he wants to reinvigorate them. We get friends in D.C., and they want to reinvigorate it. And so you get all these groups that basically say, hey, I'm going to adhere to what you have in this charter, and we're able to give that to them, and then they run with it. And if they need any help, they can always reach back to our national leadership team, which would be basically Brian, Kevin, and I, and the other names we mentioned with Brad and Catherine and Derek and all the other folks, to say, hey, what can we do to help you? I mean, unfortunately with COVID, that's probably been the biggest hurdle for a lot of those, either the new chapters or even like the chapters that really haven't formed themselves, is the COVID thing. They haven't necessarily gotten a big group to want to meet on Zoom yet. They're still trying to figure out what the heck's going on in their own cities. And that's for everybody right now is suffering with that one. And that kind of goes to the point where we talk about Kevin just got a new position. I'm looking for a new position. That we're kind of here for your first or 15th transition. And that's one of the things I think is a big thing for us too, is that we get those groups to say, hey, look, it's not about if you're just transitioning now or you just are getting out in the military in the next 2 years. It's if you left the military 5 or 10 years ago and you're coming to meet with us, what can we do to help you to get those connections? And I think that's been good across the nations for those chapters that have been going around just to give us, they asked for feedback, we gave it to them, and luckily they've been running with it very well. Nice. And one other thing, Chris, I'll say is, Brian was talking about the fact of helping out with the local San Diego breweries. It's not just been that too. During the COVID era, two things that we did actually is one is we tried to do a blood drive, which was decent. We got a lot of folks out there giving blood, but I think even more successful was we were putting up a spreadsheet of veteran-owned businesses, restaurants. Go to these restaurants, spend some money, help out with those small local businesses if you can help. So again, that was that military to community service effort that all those different businesses supporting us. And so we were there to try to help out with those veteran-owned businesses locally.
I love it. And even when we talk about going to the locations themselves, we're talking about veteran-owned breweries, Cavu Brewery, Second Chance Brewery, Mike Hess. These are veterans who are entrepreneurs who have started businesses, who are helping to mentor people through the process, and while their business is being helped as well. And so I think that's an awesome thing. But, Brian, look, just like everyone else during the COVID period, BBC has had to go to the Zoom platform. Would you agree that everyone is ready to stop networking by Zoom, or do you think that's the way forward?
I'll tell you what, they can stand in line behind me. I'm so ready to break out of the Zoom bubble, if you will, which is a great tee up because we're going to have an event tonight at Cavu in La Jolla, an in-person event, but then to also tend to the huge demographic of active duty folks who are still, I hate to put it this way, stranded at quarters, but directed to stay in their quarters. We're also going to do an online event. So we're going to try to work both of those raceways. Again, it's all about the connections. It's all about networking. 86% of all jobs is through networking. 86 or higher. So you've got to build those relationships, and those take time. And we want to give people as much time as possible to do that, because, like you said a couple times, we're not speed dating. You know, those take time to really build. The mentor that helped me get my first job, I engaged with him 3 years before I transitioned, and I built that relationship with him. And we were doing it in person at least once a quarter. And then the closer I got to transition, it was once a month. And then as I was getting ready to get out, he's like, I know the people that I need you to meet. And he vouched for me. Because at the end of the day, you're looking for those mentors who are going to vouch for you. They're going to put their name on the line, because especially on the outside, your name is your currency, you know. And although in the military, we're always negotiating with the monitors and all that kind of stuff, and clearly your reputation is huge. On the outside, when you're talking profit and loss statements, that's big. So yes, more than ready to get together and meet people in person again, so we can really do that.
And, you know, that's a great time. I'll throw that plug right now. Again, understanding Veterans Beer Club is a nationwide organization, chapters around the country, so I don't want to just make it completely San Diego focused, but hey, we can't help it. Those of us in the San Diego area are very, very much looking forward to that opportunity to return to in-person tonight at Kavoo Brewing, and that is happening at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, Kavoo Brewing in La Jolla. If you are in the San Diego area and able to participate in person, be there. Connect with me if you need more information. Connect with Phil, Brian, Kevin, any of those definitely there. But speaking of connecting, Kevin, this one's maybe for you. You know, in the chat, my good friend Michael Desa, who's with the Veterans in Agriculture group, a group that I'm actually helping to expand some veteran opportunities in agriculture on a national. And I love what they're doing. And they're in 2021 going to do a conference right here in San Diego. And so the opportunity to connect with organizations like VBC, Veterans Beer Club, whether that's in San Diego or any of the other locations, to increase awareness of opportunities for veterans to go into non-traditional or things that they might not other consider. How does someone like Michael or somebody else who wants to connect with Veterans Beer Club in a different location, how do they make that happen so they can help really increase that word?
So I think that's a great idea. And so for us right now, we're looking to continue to kind of build a brand and build Veterans Beer Club to make it a holistic, name within the veteran community. So there's two ways. We have email, obviously we have a website, we have social media, and so we have the website is called theveteransbeerclub.com, or you just Google Veterans Beer Club. First one that comes up. We have an email. It's BBC San Diego @gmail.com, and that just comes to us. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we're also on LinkedIn, and we're not really on Twitter just right yet, just because the only thing I look at Twitter is obviously for like Hellfire. Other than that, and also for any baseball stuff. But I will tell you that one of the biggest tools that we have organically is our ability to help collaborate with partners that believe in similar missions. And I will tell you that Veterans Beer Club was an idea. It started as an idea over lunch in downtown San Diego, and then it just took off. And here we are 4 years later, that we celebrate a annual event at our anniversary where there's well over 200 people. We have local politicians involved. We have people that are getting in the community. And it's not because the three of us want to toot our horns. It's ironically, or not ironically, but it's honestly the opposite. We don't take any credit. We just started something and people saw the need to help and dive in and roll their sleeves up and get to work. And so I think we're really blessed that we can create these opportunities, because just like you said earlier in the broadcast, and I'm sorry that my office lights keep going in and out, so I probably look like
gotta wave your arms for motion sensor.
Wave my arms, rolling black up in San Diego. Sensor. Yeah, that's it.
Hey, stand on top of those telephone books and jump around a little bit.
Listen, I'm already on some telephone books, man. I mean, there's only so high I can get. Always have to
You know-
carry a step ladder
you know,
for the grocery store.
Before we go away, I got to
Those
tell you guys.
wee little legs are not touching the floor.
These guys, for everyone out there, I'm just going to share a story with you. When we were putting this together, looking at the email, Phil and Brian shared an email because I need to get Kevin in on it. So, of course, I thought I had to do a little counseling with Kevin because his email they shared with me was weeman17@AOL.com. So the name and the AOL, I thought Kevin and I were going to have a conversation on there. So I was glad that wasn't exactly the case. But hey,
Yeah, touche. Yeah, I love these guys.
So, hey, gents, I really appreciate this opportunity. And I know we're running along. There's some great conversation in the chat. Hopefully you can get an opportunity to go back and take a look at some folks and connecting out there. I know Frank DeMith, you had asked about locations in West Virginia and Virginia. Please definitely visit the Veterans Beer Club website or their Facebook or their LinkedIn page. It's got more information about where they've got chapters and where they're working on it. And if you're in a location where there's not one and you want to help, found that group, then making that connection happen. So before we sign off here, because I know all of us have to get ready to go and have ourselves a beer this evening. Any last thoughts from you guys as far as tips for success on the way out the door? Phil, I'll start off with you.
One of the other things I think that's been very successful for us is it's a very straightforward dialogue. That's one thing. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you the pros. I'm going to give you the cons. I'm not going to hold back anything about what's going on with the different groups, the industries in the different areas. I think that's one thing that we keep talking about, are authentic and organic and growing those authentic connections. Sorry, I had to throw that one in there, of course.
Wait, say that one again. What is that one again?
Brewing Authentic Connections, 2016. But I think that's one thing that we really have to offer is we have that. The LinkedIn page, we allow for veteran recruiters and everybody to go on the LinkedIn page, or our Facebook page is veterans only. It is veterans only. It's not spouses. It's not groups. And that's because sometimes people have to ask those tough questions. And honestly, we're there for the veterans, and that's what it is. And we do help out with the other groups, but that's where we differentiate between our LinkedIn and our Facebook page as well. And you know what? I just tell people, if you're starting to do the transition, do it as early as possible. My boss in 2010, it was 5 years before I got out, he said, start getting out and networking, build your LinkedIn now. And that was 5 years out. I recommend no less than 2 years. But whenever you are, if it's before your transition, after transition, if it's 15 years after transition, again, we're there to help out.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Brian, what about you? Any parting thoughts for you?
I will tell you, if you're not thinking about what your value propositions are, I would highly encourage you to do that. I've written 2 articles I posted on my personal LinkedIn page. I would encourage everybody to go out there and read about those, because when you're getting interviewed, it's a two-way street. They're just not interviewing you. You're also interviewing them. You got to make sure it's a good fit. The way you do that is by understanding what your value propositions are. Second thing is understand who your mentors are, who your influencers are. And by that, I mean, who are you listening to on the radio or social media? And what are you reading to expand your knowledge base? Because you are, as you're coming out of the military, you got to demill yourself. You have to get familiar with the lingo outside the wire, so to speak. And then the last thing I would say is you're all going to get hired. Understand what it means like when you get hired. Then now what? You want to be humble. You want to be value added. But at the same time, you really have to understand that while you're in uniform, you live to work. It was your lifestyle. It was your identity. When you get on the outside, you have to embrace the fact that you're now working to live. So reconnect with your family and your friends, your churches, your temple, your mosque. Really re-engage with all those things that really, really matter in life, and you'll be much happier for it.
I love that. Thank you. That's such an important. I'm so glad you shared that. Awesome. So, Kevin, how about you? You get to sort of take batting cleanup here.
Yeah, just to add on to what Phil and Brian were saying, there's a few things that I want everyone to realize that's either transition or about the transition. Is number one, there is hope. You have a team of professionals that are already engaged and are willing to help out. Second thing I will tell you, and the best advice I can give someone who's still in uniform is from my financial advisor when I was transitioning. My advisor said, look, if someone offers you a job and it's not the income that you want, take the job, because you will transition 3 to 4 times on the average in the first 3 to 4 years that you're out of the military, and you will continue to climb that ladder. I will tell you, the first job I took was 50% of what I was making in the Marine Corps, but I learned for 2.5 years to build a network and to build what I had in my community. So now I'm on this side of the fence where I can help people that are transitioning. And the third thing I will absolutely tell you is that don't be shy and don't have a fear that you won't be hired. Everyone has the ability to be hired, and there's people out here like us that are willing to help. And there are so many amazing resources that are available that may get washed in translation. I'll give you a hint for those that don't know. There's approximately 12,000 nonprofits in this county of San Diego. 2,000 are dedicated to the military. That's overwhelming for a young service member who's transitioning. I will tell you, and the three of us can agree, probably about 100 of the nonprofits are doing the actual work. So use the people in your network to leverage what are the good programs to go through, what our experiences are. One of the things that Brian, Phil, and I love to talk about is our story, because it gives hope. It gives people an understanding that we're all in it. With my most recent transition, I am living proof that even though I retired 5 years ago, I still got an opportunity from the network that I looked into and helped to build, but also that there were people that wanted to help me out as well.
Awesome. That is awesome. And I appreciate, gentlemen, I appreciate all three. And I know we're wrapping up, but Erica did ask one important question in the chat that I'd like to make sure is out there before we go. And Erica says she's separating from the reserves after 6 years next month, and she wants to know if that qualifies her to be on the BBC Facebook page. So I just want to make sure that we put that out so anyone with that question would know. So absolute yes.
Yeah, okay. We never talk. I don't think we talk about the reserves.
Active reserve retired.
Yeah, I don't think we talk about the reserves enough. They do such an amazing job. I've worked with so many of them, so definitely.
Absolutely appreciate that. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Hey, I look forward to seeing all three of you this evening as we get together and really enjoy that opportunity. And I'm sure I'll be sharing a photo tomorrow on LinkedIn so everyone can see how that went. Really appreciate what the three of you have done. I appreciate everyone who's joined us today for this conversation. It's been an amazing one, and I look forward to more of them. For all of you out there, you have a team here on LinkedIn and in a veteran support networks that's here to help support you. So whether you're 2 years, 12 years, or 2 months from your transition, or whether you are 2 years, 12 years, or 12 months after your transition as a veteran, lean on that network. We're out here for you, and I really appreciate that opportunity. So look forward to seeing you all again. We're here on Thursday afternoons at 1 p.m. Pacific and 4 p.m. Eastern time to talk about your transition, your opportunities, the resources to help you out. I have to say, for the next 2 weeks, will not be here. I'm going to be working with some groups on the next 2 weeks to do some directed activities. So I'll be back 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now again with another great set of guests to talk with y'all. Thanks, gentlemen. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
See you all real soon.
Yes. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.